And joining us now to discuss Trump's new cabinet picks are two guests. Dante Mills is a political strategist as well as attorney and founding partner at Mills and Edwards. Bart McCoy is a former presidential campaign advisor, former U.S. diplomat, and former Deputy Assistant Secretary for International Affairs at the Energy Department. Bart and Dante, good to see you both again.
Hi, Tiffany. Hi, Dante.
Good to see you, Tiffany. How are you,
All right, Dante, I want to start with you. What's been your reaction to these picks so far, especially Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, Tulsi Gabbard for head of DNI, and Matt Gaetz for AG?
Here's what we know about incoming and former President Donald Trump. He's a man of his word. He said what he wanted to. He put his policy out there. People voted for it, and he's to advance that. You have to anticipate that in order to do that, he's going to put people in place that he knows is on board with his platform and has moved that forward. So that to me is not a surprise. The one knock that I have, though, is at some point you can't just be a businessman. You do have to be political because you are in politics. And when you look at an appointment nomination like Gaetz, Matt Gaetz, he's going to be nominated for Attorney General, I think that's not paying attention to the room, right? You're not reading the room. To me, that's just putting it out there that you don't care what anybody else thinks around you. Yes, I expected him to appoint an attorney general that's going to move his agenda forward. But when you appoint someone for attorney general or nominate someone for attorney general who, in fact, has their own investigation active right now, who's been investigated for sex trafficking and having sex with a minor, he was under investigation for that, as well as obstruction of justice, and now he's nominated as the attorney general. I think that's a disservice to the office because it doesn't allow people to fully trust the office when that's their leader. And that, I think, is the problem. Not that he's putting people in place that's on his side, but you have to account for the personality of these people and how they're viewed, because you want the public to at least trust the process and trust in the system.
And Bart, what are your thoughts on these? Are these strong picks for the roles? There are definitely no names out there, but are they the ones you expected for these posts?
I did not expect some of these. I did not expect Matt Gaetz. I did not expect Pete Hegseth at DOD. I did not expect Kristi Noem at DHS. But I want to talk specifically about Gaetz. When I first came to Washington, or when I first was appointed as a political appointee, a good friend of mine took me aside and he said, listen, Bart, you need to understand that Washington is full of what I call smiling wolves. A wolf will bare its teeth right before it rips your throat out. And he said, you're from the country where you come from. If you don't like somebody, you frown at them and you tell them you don't like them, and maybe you fight, and then you make things all right. But he said in the city, and especially in Washington, if you don't like somebody, you come up, you smile at him, and you put him off his guard, and you make him feel at home. That's what happened to President Trump in his first term. Everybody used to love Donald Trump. He was in how many cameos in movies? He was always appearing on TV shows. Oprah Winfrey loved him. The ladies on The View loved him. Everybody loved him. He came to Washington, and suddenly he's Hitler. He's the devil incarnate. And he gets out of office, and he's pursued by lawfare, ridiculous charges, ridiculous cases, an absolute twisting and perversion of the law. And this appointment of Matt Gaetz is a recognition that he's saying, yeah, I read the room all right, and it's a big middle finger to the room. He is appointing somebody who also has been the victim of lawfare, of unfair investigations. Dante, he was under investigation. He's currently under investigation by the House Ethics Committee. The Justice Department dropped the investigation of him. They said there was no evidence to back up the claims, but the taint is still there. And this is a guy who, when he fights, he's going to fight hard, and he's going to fight for real, and he's going to make it count because he knows what it's like. He would not have been my pick, but I understand why President Trump picked him. He wants somebody who's going to fight for the rule of law, not to please the salons in Georgetown. And Matt Gaetz is a junkyard dog, and he's picked a junkyard dog. Merrick Garland was a junkyard dog, but he was very polite and kind about it. He's ripped the guts out of I don't know how many people.
Dante,
to use your phrase, he wasn't tainted, right? So he wasn't tainted. Bart, do you believe that there's a benefit to having a junkyard dog, somebody that's going to fight your fight? I have no issue with that. He won, President Trump won the popular vote. So clearly the American people want him to move his agenda forward. But I think having somebody that is tainted, I think that now could taint the office of the Attorney General, the Department of Justice. So why would you do that? That's my only concern.
I think that Matt Gaetz is only tainted in the eyes of people who will not look at what the charges were and what the disposition of the charges were. He has been completely cleared of the charges against him, and he knows what it's like to have charges brought unfairly. There are people that on the left side of the aisle that think President Trump is tainted because he has 34 felony convictions. But those convictions were every one of them was bogus in the charge, in the formation, in the prosecution, in the judge and the jury instructions and the picking of the jury. I mean, even to the point of scheduling a trial in New York so that the day off is Wednesday and not Friday, so there would be no place for Orthodox Jews to sit on a jury because he was popular among Orthodox Jews. I mean, that's how unfair the charges were against President Trump. And he's picked a guy who understands what it's like to have the full weight of the law brought against him, the full weight of the Justice Department brought against him. And Merrick Garland has done that to over 20, 30 people. I mean, there are people who have served jail time who have never committed a crime, but they were charged with crimes and they had to serve time in jail. George Papadopoulos, what's his name? Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon. These were people who were put in jail because they wouldn't comply with a subpoena from the Congress. And meanwhile, Hunter Biden.
But you have to, right? I mean, you can't just ignore the law and say that the
Hunter Biden ignored the law. Hunter Biden ignored a subpoena from Congress. Hunter Biden stood up.
We'll hold this conversation. Bart, hold that note, hold that thought. Dante, I want to get back to the picks here. So when it comes to these picks, one part that's getting a lot of attention is age. For instance, J.D. Vance and Vivek Ramaswamy, they're 39. Elise Stefanik, 40. Matt Gaetz, 42. Tulsi Gabbard is 43. Pete Hegseth and Lee Zeldin are 44. Now, critics are saying these picks are too young. Supporters say that the leadership so far has been too old for too long. Given that, though, Dante, what is your take on the age issue?
I don't think anybody is too young if they show that they have the ability to handle the job that they've been assigned. And I think that there are some smart picks in this cabinet that incoming President Trump has nominated. It is funny that we're having this, and Bart is a phenomenal person. We're having this exchange over cabinet picks, which normally doesn't happen. Usually cabinet picks are, the public they don't really pay attention to them. They just go in there and they do their job. I expect most of the cabinet selections to do that. I like that there are young people because they'll come in with fresh ideas. And I think that that's something that incoming President Trump promised to bring, some kind of new ideas to the White House. He wants to shake it up a bit. Hopefully he doesn't treat it like a business 100%, because the country is based on its people, not its bottom line. But we do want some new faces coming in with some ideas to push this forward and not just kind of doing the status quo or the same thing that's been done. So I like where most of these picks, the direction they're heading. Hopefully he just avoids these controversial picks that cause people to question these offices, where he really doesn't have to do that. He can pick people that's going to get his agenda moving forward, but just not be tainted or not be so controversial.
And Bart, controversies aside on the age part, during our nation's founding and the Declaration of Independence back in 1776, Thomas Jefferson, 33, John Adams, 40, George Washington, 44, James Madison, 25, Alexander Hamilton, just 21. How do you read this return to tradition, if you will?
Yeah, I agree with Dante. The age, these guys are at a good age. They're old enough to have been hurt, to have made mistakes, to have recovered, to have learned some tough lessons of life. And they're young enough to have tremendous energy. President Trump has tremendous energy, but he's a very unusual guy. But most people his age don't. He has picked people. He is saying, listen, the Republican Party, the Trump administration is an administration with energy, commitment, and he knows if he's going to get his agenda done, he's got essentially about 8 months to do it. He has to do it between January and August of next year, and he has to get it all done. And these are hard-charging people who are going to go forward and get it done in that first session of his first Congress.
All right, Dante Mills, Bart Marcois, thank you both so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.